Hey guys, it's Veronica and you're welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'll show you how to make this side front drawstring ruffle hem skirt from the style analysis, pattern drafting, cutting and stitching. If you would like to see how I did this, please keep on watching. You'll be needing the following tools and measurements for this project. A full list is also in my description box below. For our style analysis, this is the inspiration for this project. The fabric used is a lightweight black on white Dalmatian print fabric, but I'll be using a black on white zebra print fabric, which is also lightweight. It is a short skirt with ruffles at the hem with a drawstring at the side front. There is no waistband at the waist, and I'll be finishing off the waistline with a facing. There is no slit at the back of the skirt, and an invisible zipper was used for this style. We will start by marking our hip depth from the top of the paper, and our hip depth is our waist to hip measurement. Then we'll draw a straight line across. Mine is 8 inches. Also, from the top of the paper, we'll mark the length of the skirt and draw a straight line across. This length is how long you want your skirt to be. Mine is about 18 inches. From the line we just drew, I will go up by 2 inches and mark, then draw a straight line across. This 2 inches is the length of the ruffles at the hem of the skirt. Now I will label the hip line, the waistline and the hemline. Now I will divide my hip measurement by 4 and add 1/4 inch for ease and mark on the hip line. This ease is because of the type of skirt we are drafting. It doesn't need to be too tight. I will also be dividing my waist measurement by 4, but I will add 1 inch for that allowance and 1/4 inch for ease and mark on the waistline. On the hemline, I will mark the exact measurement I made on the hip line. Now I will join the hip line, hemline and waistline together. So at this point, we'll go back to the waistline and you mark out the dart point or point. So mark your dart where your dart should be. Mark it on the waistline. Now I will cut out my skirt block, which will be used to make or draft the back and front patterns of our drawstring skirt. On another pattern paper, mark 1 inch and draw a straight line across. This will be the zipper allowance. Go to the top of the paper and mark 1 inch and draw a straight line across. This is where the sewing allowance for the waist will be. Now align the skirt block with the lines we just drew, like I'm doing, and tape it securely. Add 1 inch seam or sewing allowance around the side seam or any allowance you prefer. It can be 1.5 inch, it can be 2 inches depending on you. So the hemline, add 1/2 inch allowance which will be used to join the ruffles at the hemline. Also add 1/2 inch at the waistline to join the skirt and the facing. Remember to extend your dart points to this new draft for the back skirt. Now cut out. This is the back skirt and it will be cut into 2 pieces. I'm also labeling where the zipper will be. We will draft the front of our skirt, but you start by folding your paper into two. Place the skirt block on the folded paper. Both should align like mine, then tape into place. Start by adding 1 inch sewing allowance around the side seam and 1/2 inch sewing allowance around the waistline and hemlines respectively. Also remember to extend the dart points to this new draft for the front skirt. Take out the basic skirt block and cut out. Notch the dart point so it appears on both sides of the folded paper. Open up the folded paper and draw a straight line down to the hemline. That is, you draw a line that cuts across the dart point from the waistline to the hemline. So this is where your drawstring will be. Now you will cut out through this line and we separate our front skirt into two parts. Add 1/2 inch allowance along the smaller and bigger front skirt pieces like I'm doing. Now I'll label the front skirt pieces so I'm not confused when cutting out. These are the front and back pieces of our skirt. To cut, we'll start with the back patterns. Fold your fabric into two with the right sides facing each other and place your pattern pieces on your fabric. You don't have to worry about allowance or anything. Just place your patterns on your fabric, pin in place and cut, remembering to follow the guidelines you have written on your paper. Also remember to transfer your darts from your paper to your fabric by notching or making small cuts. For the front skirt, we will not be folding the fabric into two like we did with the back. Just place your patterns on your fabric just the way I am doing. The right side of your fabric should also be facing you. Pin the patterns in place and cut out. Making patterns helps reduce wastage of fabric. These are our skirt pieces, but remember to transfer your dart points from paper to fabric by making small cuts on the fabric to align with the dart points you made when drafting on paper. Pin the two front skirt pieces together so you are not confused when stitching or sewing. Also do the same for the back skirt pieces. Pin them in place so you don't get confused when you need to sew or stitch. To draft and cut the facing for the skirt, we will use the back skirt pattern. Fold the zipper allowance in, then from the top of the pattern mark down 3.5 inches and draw a straight line across. Fold your fabric into two, place the pattern on the fabric, pin and cut out the facing pattern you have just created like you see me doing. Repeat the same process for the back skirt facing, but for this you will open up the zipper allowance you folded in earlier. These are your facings. To cut our ruffles, go back to the 2 inches you marked out at the beginning and add 1.5 inch. 1/2 inch is for joining to the skirt and 1 inch is for sewing at the hem and cut out on fabric. The length of your ruffles should be about 2 times the entire length of your skirt hem. To cut out the channel for the drawstring, measure the full skirt length plus the ruffle length. This will be the length of your drawstring channel. The width, or how wide it should be wide enough for stitching on the skirt and wide enough for your tiny ropes to pass through. Lastly, cut out ropes for your drawstring. This rope should be the total length of your skirt plus at least 5 to 6 inches. These are all the pieces we cut out: 2 back skirt pieces, 2 front skirt pieces, facing, ruffle, drawstring channel, and ropes. We'll be sewing next. We'll start by sewing all our darts. We have 2 at the back and 1 at the front, and after sewing we will press. After sewing and pressing your darts, go to the 1-inch zipper allowance at the back skirt and mark down 8.5 inches from the top. You will stitch down from the line you have marked with 1-inch seam allowance down to the hem of the skirt. Then fix your zipper. I will be using an invisible zipper. Now join the 2 front pieces on a 1/2 inch sewing allowance. After joining the 2 front pieces, sew the front and back skirt pieces on a 1-inch sewing allowance around the side seams. This is what your skirt should look like. Remember to press your seams open. We will make our ruffles by sewing a loose or basting stitch 1/4 inch around the entire length of the fabric for the ruffles. You can also use a ruffler foot if you have one. Now we will make the ruffles by pulling one thread on one end of the fabric until you get the desired length you want. Then after getting the desired length you want, stitch both ends together, right sides facing each other. Now I will pin the ruffles and the hemline of the skirt together and sew on a 1/2 inch sewing allowance. To sew the drawstring channel, I went ahead to stitch down 1/2 inch from the bottom of one side of the channel. I also pressed down the middle of the channel and press 1/2 inch on both sides. I will now place my channel on the seam at the side front where the 2 front pieces were joined and pin the channel in place, enclosing the seam but making sure the middle of my channel coincides with the middle of the seam. I will now take it to my sewing machine and sew both sides of the channel to secure it. Remember, the channel is first sewn on the wrong side of your skirt as you see me doing. After stitching your drawstring channel to your skirt, that's the back of the skirt, now turn it to the front and sew along the center of the channel on the right side of the skirt. This divides your channel into 2 parts. Now stitch or sew your ropes. Fix your ropes into the channel and pin in place at the waistline. Lastly, join your facings together at the side seams. I sew them at the side seams and finish off the waistline of the skirt. Remember to top stitch your facing. Remember also to pleat the excess from the darts on the facing. This is the finished skirt. I also went ahead to hem the ruffles. One thing I think I could have changed when making this is to reduce the width or wideness of the drawstring channel, and also reduce the amount of my ruffles. My ruffles are fuller than that of the reference style. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, leave comments down in the comment section below, turn on the notification bell, share. I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.